potential new law students. So today is the first video, and we're going to talk about how to decide where to apply to law school. So there are several different things to consider, and we're just going to kind of run through them really quick. So one thing to consider right away is that your professors at your undergrad are probably a really great resource for you. Don't be afraid to ask them for help. They probably want to help you make this decision. So they're always a resource for you. I know I used the heck out of my undergrad professors when deciding where to go to law school, where to apply, and things like that. So don't be afraid to use those resources. Moving forward to more of your subjective reasoning. Now, when you decide where to apply and where to go, these are both very subjective things. People weigh things differently in their own mind. This is just the way I figured this out. I really hope it helps you, but if not, make your own list of things you find important. This is just mine. So the first thing to think about that I think is really important is, where are you a resident? This will probably improve your chances of getting into law school. It will probably increase your chances of having a very good support system, and it'll give you a better deal on tuition in the end. So that's one thing to consider. I was able to do an internship with the United States Attorney's Office in Pierce, South Dakota, and they gave me some advice when I was considering, just at the very beginning of maybe thinking about going to law school. And the piece of advice they gave me that I really want to share with you all today is, go to school where you want to practice. So if you want to stay in the state you're in, go to law school in that state, because they're going to be teaching you that state's law. So for me, I wanted to stay in the Midwest. I moved around a lot as a kid, and I knew I wanted to stay in Midwest. It was somewhere where I felt comfortable and where I saw a lot of my values reflected back to me. So that was really important for me. So based on just that priority, I was able to narrow my law school search from all 50 states to 5. So that automatically weans out a ton of different law schools. And some of those states wean more than others. For example, the University of South Dakota the state of South Dakota only has 1 law school. So that's even narrower, which is super great when you're trying to narrow these down, because applying to law school can get expensive. So the less you apply to, the better. So I would just narrow it down to your top 5 or your top 6, however many that you can afford to go to. So go to school where you want to practice. That is number 1 on this list. After that consideration, you get to start more subjective analysis. Do you like a big campus, or do you want a smaller campus? What are your morals? Where will they be reflected back to you? Like I said, my morals were reflected back to me at the University of South Dakota, and that was important that I went there. And they're more likely to be reflected back to me in the states that I apply to school in, such as Colorado, South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, and Illinois, than they were to be reflected to me if I went to New York or to California, just because those are very different environments than the type I grew up in. So the next thing to look at is, do you know what you want to do? Now, when I went to undergrad, I really thought I wanted to be a prosecutor. And then I did some more research and interned at a couple different places and thought, oh, maybe I don't want to be a prosecutor, maybe I want to do transaction law. So I really didn't know what I wanted to do. But if you do, you can use that to narrow down the field. So by the time I was applying to law schools, I thought I wanted to do transaction law. So I started looking at schools that had them. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln, which is one of the places I applied, has a transactional law clinic and a transactional law track. Same with CU Boulder, which is another place that I applied. So that's something to consider. Next thing to look at is, do you have the money? Like I said, applying to law schools can be spendy, so that can determine if you need to winnow your list down to 2 or 3, or if you can have one that is 5 schools, or if you can have one that's 10 schools long. It just depends. Within that, if you have the money to apply to several different schools, what I will tell you to do is to apply to a safety school. Now, even if you don't need a safety school, apply to one anyway. When you're applying to law schools, you're incredibly stressed out, you're worried that you're not going to get in anywhere, and you just want to continue on this path. If you apply to a safety school, as soon as you get that letter, you're just going to feel immediately relieved that you've made it in somewhere. And chances are, if you have a good resume that allows you to get into places that are a little bit more prestigious, the safety school will get back to you faster and it will just relieve you that much faster. So that's one thing to consider. Also, don't sell yourself short. Apply for a reach school or two. It's important to be realistic when deciding this, but lean on the optimistic side. Again, with being realistic, know what your resume is. Know what your LSAT score is. Know your GPA. What are your extracurricular activities, and where did you go to school? Now, I kind of have a mixed bag in what my resume was. I scored okay on my LSAT. I got a 155. I had a 4.0 GPA. I was involved in a lot of extracurricular activities in my undergrad, but I also didn't go to a school that was very well known. I went to a small school in the Panhandle, Nebraska called Chadron State College. I loved it there, but it doesn't have a lot of prestige in the outside world. So that's something to consider, is that if I have a 4.0 at Chadron State College versus if I have a 4.0 at University of Nebraska-Lincoln, that means different things to different people. So just keep that in mind. I've told you some of the schools that I thought about applying to, or that I did apply to. Cards on the table, my entire story is this. I applied to the University of South Dakota, University of Nebraska, CU Boulder, University of Iowa, and to Northwestern. So clearly my reach school was Northwestern. It was something that one of my professors had floated to me about, something that I could potentially do. And I thought, well, you know what? Why not? I have some extra money that I've been saving for this. I can apply to this school. And I applied. I didn't get in, and that's okay. Sometimes you're not going to get into your reach school. And I knew Northwestern was going to be a big reach for me. That being said, Iowa was also one of my reach schools. My undergrad college is not well known. My LSAT score wasn't really what I was expecting to get in with in Iowa. Nevertheless, I was accepted, and that was really, really great. So just think of things. You have to be realistic when deciding where you could potentially get into places, but it's also important to lean on the optimistic side of realistic. Don't sell yourself short just because you didn't get into the high 160s for your LSAT. You'll be fine. With that, if you guys have any questions about deciding where to apply or anything else like that, please drop a comment below. Be kind. This is my first ever YouTube video, and I'm just trying to help. So I hope this has helped you in some sort of way. Ask me any questions if you want to. Have a great day. Take a deep breath. You'll get through this just fine. You can do it. Just put your nose to the grindstone and get it done. All right, guys. Have a good day.